Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Whether you have a website template from me or from someone else, a Showit template, a WordPress template, Squarespace, doesn't matter. In this episode, I'm going to give you 8 time-saving strategies to help you get your website customized and live faster. So after buying a new template or a new theme, you're likely really excited and you're ready to go. But then what happens when it goes nowhere and you're halted and you're not getting the site live? The truth is your website can't work for your business unless it's up and live for the world to see. So these tips are going to help you with that. And these come both from myself as someone who designs templates and also from what my customers say who were able to get their sites up really quickly without prior knowledge of website design. So this topic sounds familiar to you. You're like, wait, I think I've heard this before. It's because the meat of this episode originally aired in 2020 and it was a really popular episode based both on downloads and feedback from you guys. It's still super highly listened to. So whether you listened to this back then and you're like, I need a refresher. I actually just got a new template or I want to work on my website again. Or if you totally never heard it and you're like, this is new information to me, but you need it. It's back. It's here for you to check out and with a new little intro from me right now. And as I'm recording this part right now, talking to you, I'm still on maternity leave. I'm actually a little sick right now. So if my voice sounds off, I have a cold, which is really fun with a newborn, right? But maternity leave has been awesome. I'm really tired running off of last night, the longest stretch of sleep I got was 3 hours, I think, or maybe 2.5. So anyway, I'm really tired. But being on maternity leave as a business owner around Black Friday means diving into some work still. I'm in my office for the first time right now, recording and working some since he's been born. So been soaking up the sweet baby newborn snuggles. Colin is seriously so much fun. Be sure to follow me on Instagram if you haven't. That's where I've shared a few photos of him and some videos and things like that. So I'll share updates of what's going on with us over there. It feels weird working right now. I will say that. So anyway, that's it. That's a little life update for you. And I'm ready for you to get these awesome tips. So let's dive into it now. All right, so these tips I'm about to share, they aren't just from me, but they're from customers too. So when we have customers who get their sites up super fast, I always want to ask how, you don't know Showit already. This isn't what you do for a living, and this is what they share. So at this point, we've had hundreds of people buy and use the M-Shop website templates. If you don't know what I'm talking about, they're Showit website templates. They're fun, strategic. There's a bunch of them to choose from. They'll really work for so many variety of industries, and I make them with the intent for you to be able to customize them really easily, customize them quickly. We give you the training in order to do so and the customer support in order to do so and all of that kind of stuff. And so real quick, before we get into the tips, I just want to specify, I'm talking about getting your website template done faster, not a custom website where you're working one-on-one with the designer. Those are two totally different things. And sometimes people don't really realize what a template is. So I want to clarify that real quick. A template, some people call it a theme. Basically, it's a pre-made, pre-designed website. You buy it from someone, then you customize it. And with my templates, you can customize it a little bit or you can customize it a lot depending on how detailed you want to get. So you can change out the fonts, the colors, you can add and delete pages, add and delete sections, whatever you want. And templates are more of a DIY, do-it-yourself experience than it is to work one-on-one with the designer. And I like to think of the M-Shop templates as kind of more done with you, because we offer a course that teaches you how to set it up, which we'll talk about in this episode. But templates are technically a DIY way of, doing your website. So this is different than tips I would give for moving a project along with a designer, which maybe we should do an episode on that too. As a designer of there's a lot of ways to help us get things up quicker. So anyway, if you're listening to this live or close to live, then I want to say real fast again, before we get into the tips, Black Friday is right around the corner and it's so exciting. I'm excited because this is the biggest sale I do all year. We really knock it out of the park with additional goodies, giveaways, and a huge discount. So if you're thinking, okay, I think I'm ready to upgrade my website soon, our Black Friday sale will be literally the perfect time to do that. So to get all the cool offers we'll be sharing, you'll want to be on the email list. So to do that, I'll put a link in the show notes for some different freebies you can opt in for. Anything that floats your boat that excites you. There's a ton of awesome ones on my website. And if you're not sure which one to do, elizabethmccravey.com/style is a great one. You can take the website personality quiz and get matched with a website template that's right for you. So that is it. Let's get into these tips to get your website up faster. My first tip, again, regardless of what website template you're working with, I want to generalize this to all website templates and themes. My first tip, don't jump right into customizing it immediately. I'm saying don't buy the thing and then immediately be all right, tackling the homepage, here we go. Instead, what I'd recommend you do is get familiar with the website builder before you start customizing everything. So sometimes people get a new template and then with no strategy, no plan, whatever, they just start working on a random page. Talking about Show It, you might put the template into your Show It account, which is super easy to do. You install it and then you're just I'm going. I'm putting my content and I'm changing out the photos immediately. And this does work for some people for sure. And it could seem really smart. But what I recommend doing is something really similar but different. And it literally is going to add maybe 10 minutes on, but it's going to give you more clarity and help you have a more successful customization process in general. Again, by adding 10 more minutes. So in my Show It Blueprint course, I have a video on this and I call it Getting Messy with Show It. That's literally what the video is called if you want to go find that. And I want to say the video is 4 minutes or so. It's in the first full module of my course. And I encourage all my template buyers to do this. So here's how you do it. The idea of this was inspired by the way I learned design softwares in college. So I think it's so smart and savvy. And my teacher, my amazing graphic design teacher, when we had a new program we were learning, before she was let's watch tutorials. Here's a lesson on how to use it. Here, read this book. Before she did all that kind of stuff, she would give us an assignment that involved making something with basically no context for how to use the software. But the idea was that we needed to use every tool, click every button within the software. So that's Photoshop. It's I have some random assignment, something I'm supposed to make, but I have to use every tool. And so it was really fun because what we were making wasn't supposed to look good. It was actually just supposed to be random, probably kind of ugly, and supposed to just be silly. But by doing this as students, we got familiar with the software in an approachable way. In a I'm not afraid to mess things up way, and just an I'm learning way. And then after that, we went in and would, read the book or whatever it was. And we weren't having to make something perfect, like a work of art immediately. It was just learning. And so this is the exact thing I want to encourage you to do with learning a new website software. The same thing can be done for you as a non-designer using Show It. It all applies. So basically what I want you to do is duplicate a page of the template or create a new blank page. Either way. And again, you can do this with any website software. And then just start playing around and make a goal to click every button. Like I was saying, click on all the tools, all the buttons, do something with them, and just explore. If you're in Show It, look at the mobile view, look at the desktop view, explore what it's like to put an image in, to move it around, to move around your text, all that kind of stuff. And the reason I recommend doing this on a duplicated or blank page is because then you're not messing up anything that's all pretty in the template, which I know is sometimes people's fear when they're getting started. So then they hold back in learning well because they're oh my gosh, I don't want to mess anything up. So instead, you're working on a page that you're going to just plan to delete after, and everything's fine. You're supposed to mess it up. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. And if that sounds like a silly extra step, it's not something long. Again, I would say do this for like 10 minutes and then you can dive in to actually working on the template. But let yourself have the freedom to just mess around in it. And maybe like if it's helpful to you, turn on like a TV show, have a glass of wine and just like relax and make it fun. I'm going to talk about this later, but sometimes the hardest step in something like this is taking that first step. So make it fun, get messy in the software, have some wine, have some TV while you do it, and make it a good time for yourself. Okay, so the second tip, this one actually piggybacks off of what I was just talking about, but utilize training content and tutorials and all of that. Basically, don't go at it alone. So if you're using Showit, which is again the website platform I use, most people do find it super intuitive. But that doesn't mean you won't get your site done faster and better if you have some training. So just because it's intuitive doesn't mean you need additional help. Even if you're super techie, even if you're not techie, doesn't matter. So if you're a customer of mine, you get a course with your purchase that is called the Showit Blueprint course. And I'm not going to talk about it for days on here because that's not the point of this episode. And I will link in the show notes to a video you can watch where I show you like a tour of what all's in the course. If you want to go to that link, elizabethmccravey.com/course-video will get you to it. Again, I'll put that in the show notes. But the point is, you don't need to go at it alone with no training. So if you're a customer of mine, I say this in the first module of the course, but I recommend watching module 0, which yes, there's a module 0. It's just 2 videos, very like introductory. And then module 1 is, I want to say like 7 videos. And I recommend watching those to get the basics down of using Showit. And then after that, you kind of just move around the course to see what you need. And an interesting thing, at the time of this recording, the course has 75 lessons, which might sound like, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, I do not have time to watch 75 videos in order to get my website live. And I totally get that and don't recommend watching all of them. A cool thing about it is it's really custom to what you need. So a lot of the content feels like repeating a little. So as an example, there is a module on email marketing, integrating your email marketing into your website. There's like 5 videos in there, 1 per major email marketing software. So let's say you use Flowdesk. You're going to watch the Flowdesk video and then you're going to mark the MailChimp ConvertKit. I'm trying to think of which all ones are in there. There's a couple, ActiveCampaign maybe. All of those, you're going to mark those videos as complete, and then you're done with that module. Another thing, the videos are short, under 15 minutes mostly, and many of them are closer to 5 minutes. And there's a few that are a bit longer, like the one on SEO. Those are a bit longer because it's more detailed, intense type training. But generally speaking, they're shorter and easy to get through. So I recommend finding something like that. And again, other website building softwares have tutorials other places and things like that. that. But if you are buying a template from me, you need to do the course. And again, show it's easy to use, but it's easier with a guide. And I actually want to read you guys, to go along with this, 2 quotes from 2 of my customers talking about this course and the need for having training videos. So both of these, I literally just right before sitting down to record this, I was looking through our survey and found these were 2 recent reviews. So this first one's from Lee Lester, who's just an awesome counselor. So she says, "This has been one of the best investments in my business. The template is beautifully designed and easily customizable." Here's what she says about the course. "The course was worth the premium alone. I was impressed with the amount of content included, especially the SEO section. I feel like Elizabeth is just as invested in my site's success as I am," which is so true. I am just as invested. Another quick one I want to read. This is from Allie Deary, who is an incredible photographer. So she says, "The template was set up flawlessly and customizing it was very easy. I'd never used Show It before." Okay, that's you. Listen up. She says, "So the blueprint course was super helpful. After watching the first main sections, I felt comfortable DIYing the rest of my own site, but referred back to the blueprint videos when I had questions. I absolutely recommend buying a template from MShop. You get so much more than just a template. You get a complete roadmap to make your website happen quickly and easily." And she's another great example of someone who got it up really fast. But I love what she says there, you guys. That's what I'm telling you to do. She says that she watched the main sections, which that's what she's talking about, module 1 and 2, possibly some of module 3 she might have watched, but then she just went back for what she needed. So I just love that. And I want to encourage you, just do training. Don't just dive in blind to working on your website. Get some training stuff done. So that's my second tip. Okay, third tip. This one is a really key one that a lot of customers have talked about. Get your photos and website copy started before you start on the design. Again, this one's really big for my customers who have gotten it done so quickly. When I ask them about it, a lot of them say that they had already kind of started working on the other elements of their site. So being organized before you dive into everything and having a game plan is just so helpful. So the way you customize a website template, in the most basic sense to explain it, is you're adding in photos and website copy. Okay. And changing out your photos is really easy. You literally click on the template photo and you go to your media library and you replace it with your photo. It's like a 1-second process per photo. And adding copy can also be easy if you do it right, but having those things ready to go is going to make doing the act of actually inputting them so much quicker. And you can also customize other stuff in the template besides website copy and photos, obviously. But those are the 2 main things that every single person is always going to be changing out. So I want to give you, I have, 3 tips for copy and 3 tips for photos to help you get those done quicker. Okay, so the first one, this is so key. So do not write your copy directly into your website template. And what I mean by that is don't be, writing your whole about page, just typing directly into your website template. So the way Show It set up, this is also true of Squarespace and WordPress and other website builders, but you can type directly into it when you're working on writing stuff. But I'm saying don't do that. The copyright should happen off the website. You're going to have more clarity that way. You're going to write better copy. So I say use Google Docs or a Word doc or something like that, type it into there, and then go back to your template and paste stuff. And yes, okay, it's of course okay to directly type in to the template some sections. I'm not saying everything has to be copied and pasted, but for the big bulky sections, definitely copy and pasting it from a Google Doc will be key. Okay, the second tip for copy, use the website template as a guide for writing your copy. And this is such a big piece of feedback I get from customers, is that they use the layout of the template and the headers as a guide for what to put where. And so it's really easy to change stuff up if it doesn't make sense for your business. You can move things around, you can delete things, all of that. But generally speaking, if you're looking at a page and you're okay, the template wants me to do a copy of section on this topic, and then on this topic, and then this next. In a document, you can kind of put out each of those sections and then type in for that. So trying to think of a great example, but say this section's testimonials, This section is a short blurb about me. This section is a detail about my top 3 services, whatever it is, using the template as a guide for copywriting. And I actually want to read a little piece of a review here from Danielle Cook, who is a copywriter, who uses the Leanne template, because it's funny because she speaks exactly to this as even a copywriter. So she says, as a copywriter, I enjoyed having a framework for the length of the content. It was evident in the design that Elizabeth had a deep understanding of marketing and user experience, which means I only had to make minimal customizations. I cannot recommend partnering with Elizabeth for her thoughtful and intuitive designs. Recommend enough. I left that word out. But yeah, so she's saying using the template as a guide for copywriting. I have a lot of copywriters who have said that as well. Just that was a helpful piece of it, is that you can kind of use that as a framework. And the third tip I'd give for copywriting is to see your website copy as sections. So when we look at our website and writing the words for it, and we're just like, I have to write words for an entire website. That is extremely overwhelming. But if we see it as sections, like I need to write a blurb about myself that goes on the homepage. I need to write a 3-sentence description for each of my services. I need to come up with 10 testimonials. When we see it more like that as separate things, it's going to be so much easier to write versus seeing it as one giant thing. And of course, those sections need to flow together in the end, like cohesively, but still they're separate things. So don't let yourself be like it's a massive undertaking. See it in sections and work on it in sections. Maybe you do one section, put into the template, go back to writing and go back and forth. Whatever you need to do. So I'm still on tip number 3 here, but I want to share 3 tips for photos of getting those faster and working those into your website template. So the first thing I would say is you can start working on your website without images yet. And I think this is something too that can hold people back and make them take longer, is they feel like they have to have the perfect brand photo shoot done before they can work on their website template. So I've had many customers, maybe they buy a template from me and then at the same time they're hiring a brand photographer. And so then they don't have the photos immediately. So a lot of them are adding their website copy to the template while leaving all those filler images throughout the template, like the ones that come with it. And then they're like, once they have their photos done, they're going to just replace them and then they can launch. I've heard that story so many times of that being the process. If y'all listen to Kaylin's episode on here, she was episode, 67, where she talks about her process with the template. She did that. She customized her template in I think a day or 2 days, and then was waiting for her photographer to get the photos back to her, and then she put them in. So you can do that. You don't have to have every detail figured out before you get started. You can work with a photographer while you're customizing the template. The second tip I would give, I would say work with a brand photographer for your website. I have 2 podcast episodes, if you scroll back, that you can find, where I walk you through how to find a great photographer, how to plan a photo shoot, why brand photos are so important, all of that. But the reason I add that tip here is because this adds more value to your website than most people think. And you'll likely find setting up your website as more inspirational and more fun when you're getting to see yourself plug in photos of you and photos that represent your business into the template, versus looking at it and being like, I have no images to put in here. I have 5 images I'm working at that were all like headshots from my old job, and that's all you have. It's going to feel a lot more challenging. So working with a brand photographer is a key there. And again, that doesn't have to be super expensive. My first photo shoot ever was a service exchange where I paid no money and got great brand photos I still use sometimes. So just don't feel like that has to be a huge investment necessarily right off the bat. The third tip I'd give for photos is to utilize stock images as needed. So there's a lot of great free stock image sites out there and paid ones as well. And you can utilize these on your site too, alongside your brand photos, to have a lot of variety. So it doesn't have to be just one or the other. So you can kind of use those to fill in as needed to get things going. Or maybe you use stock images until you have more brand photos, whatever works for you. Just don't let the photos be the thing holding you back. So those are 3 tips for copy and photos. And just remember, thinking about those before you dive in. That's really the point here. And you could start on your copy, or you could plan a brand photo shoot before you buy your website template, or you can buy your website template and then kind of work on those. And then once you have those and have started those processes, dive dive in. But if these two things, if you're like letting them stress you out too much, then getting started is going to be so much harder. Okay, this fourth tip, I really love this one. Don't reinvent the wheel on the design. So with my templates and many other templates out there, you can change as much or as little as you want, which can be kind of overwhelming because it's like you can completely reinvent the wheel here, or you can stick closer to the template. So the only must changes that you really have to do is what I was just talking about, adding your own copywriting and changing out the images. But besides that, you can keep the fonts, you can keep the colors, you can keep the layout, all of that as is if you want to. And some people want to totally change up their template in big ways, like completely new fonts, completely new colors, changing the layout a lot, all of that. And that's super doable even as a non-designer. Seriously, if you go look at my showcase page on my site, you'll see tons of customers who have done big changes. That's elizabethmccravey.com/showcase if you want to see that. But you'll see some who are like, this looks nothing like the original template. And those people are non-designers figuring out how to do that. But I want to say this isn't a necessity, especially right off the bat. Your website is going to look different from the template just by changing out the copywriting and the images. You'll be shocked about how much different it looks. I think some people can be like afraid of like, I don't want to look too similar to a website template, and it really doesn't. Even just with those changes. So a fast way to make it more customized to your brand is just changing out the fonts and colors or changing those up a little bit, like changing out one font, customizing the color palette a little bit, all of that. And I show you how to do all that in the Show It Blueprint course. It's super easy, again, even as a non-designer. And you can just make it match your brand. So if the ones in the template are like, that color's not really my vibe, you can change it up easily. But if you're reinventing the wheel on every single thing, it will take longer. So sticking closer to the template design is really going to help you move things along. And I've had a lot of customers who, maybe on their first go about of customizing the template, they do stick just super close to the design. And then pieces of their business change some, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but their business changes a little. And then they maybe change it even more from the original design as things go on. So yeah, that's my fourth tip. Just don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, fifth thing. Let the website template help you create your brand. I love this one. So you do not have to go get professional branding and logo design in order to use a website template. Fun fact, a lot of people don't realize that. And if you're an online-based business, meaning like you do not own a storefront somewhere, then I would say having a solid website is way more important when you're starting out than paying someone to get a logo done. Even if you're not starting out, I still think it's more important if you're in the online business space to have a solid website. And that includes having fonts and colors because those are parts of your brand, but that all can come within the template. So if you're looking at buying a template and you're like, but I don't have brand colors, I don't have a logo, I don't have fonts, that's okay. So the website template can help you get those things done. So an example of this is that many of my customers talk about how their website template helped them create a brand for themselves. And this doesn't mean that their end brand was the exact same as the template, but they used it as a starting point. And something cool to note that a lot of people don't realize, I've found out, I thought this was like something people probably just knew, but a lot of people don't. But with my templates, on them where you see like the name of the template with the tagline underneath it and it looks like a logo, that's actually editable directly in Show It. So you're not having to upload a logo file that you like made in Photoshop or Canva or something like that. You can literally directly edit it in the template. So then it's like you have a logo on your website, but it's actually text. So that's cool. You can just customize it to be your business name and tagline and change it up however it needs to be. And alternatively, if you did have a logo file, you can add that too. It doesn't have to be the text way. But the point is, don't feel like having a logo or brand colors, like not having those yet, stop you from getting started on your own website, because you can use the website to really create a brand. And again, I want to point you guys after this episode, if you're like, I have more questions, I want to hear more about this. Episode 67, I have Kaylin Thompson on from Joy to Lead, and she talks about using the Nicole template to get her site all set up and customized. But she talks about this of like she was using the Nicole template as a guide to making her brand. And she changed up the color some, she changed up the font some, but she used that as the base and was able to then go into things like Canva and use her exact color palette that was a base from the template to get stuff and make cohesion everywhere. So the website can be where it starts, is basically what I'm saying. And, I want to read another quote here. So here's a quote that goes with this one. This is from Stephanie Case, who's a really awesome photographer and educator to photographers. And so this is a little snippet from something she said in her review. But she says, my favorite part about my website is that it looks like a custom website and brand that I spent thousands of dollars on, even though it's just a template. It was so easy to customize exactly how I wanted it and have a brand that looks high end and with a personality. So she's someone who did change up her template a lot and did it really quickly though too. She launched super fast, but she created her branding herself and it looks fabulous. Seriously, go look at her site. It's on the showcase page. You can get to it from there if you just search for her, but her site looks incredible and she did it herself using the template as a starting point. So that's my 5th tip. Let the website template help you create your brand. All right, and my 6th tip, and I'll keep this one shorter, but the tip here is just start. Okay. And I'm putting this one on here because I really want you to hear me on this. Starting is the hardest part of doing anything new. Okay. Especially with a website template, especially if you're learning new software, it can feel really overwhelming. But typically once you get going, you'll get on a roll, and figuring out what the next or first step should be for you is going to be really huge here. So figure out what that step is, and then set aside maybe an hour on your calendar and just do that first 1 or 2 steps. And then once you get started, you'll likely feel on a roll and you'll be like, oh my gosh, the next day, all I want to do is work on my website template. When before you were struggling to just do the first step. And I think about this for myself right now because I'm working on creating this new course for designers. You guys heard me talk about that a few episodes back. And I had the idea, I made the commitment. I kind of did a rough outline of what the modules are going to be, but then actually starting on the module content of here is a lesson and outlining it felt so hard. And literally for a week, you guys, I just didn't work on it because I felt in paralysis mode. It was too much to do. It was too overwhelming. It's all these things, all these videos. I just can't get started. And that might be how you feel about your website. It's all these pages, this whole course I have to go through, and it feels just super overwhelming. And so you don't do it at all. And the solution for me was to start at square one versus seeing the whole project. So see the first step and trying to just do that one first step. And so what I did is actually last Friday, from the time I'm recording this, I set aside a whole work day to work on the course. And I was like, that's all I'm going to do today. And I got some nice coffee and I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to work on this. And I did what was the first step for me. And then the rest of the day, I was just rolling. It went so quick. I was like, I got so much done. And then literally the next day on a Saturday, I just was like, all I want to do is work on this. Because I got the motivation going. And getting started was what was the hardest part. So with your website, I want to encourage you to do that first step. And again, going back to my first tip, that first step might be getting messy and just learning the website platform a little bit, and then picking a page and starting to write some website copy, getting all your photos uploaded into Showit or whatever your website builder is. And then starting on just one page and make it a goal to get one page ready. A great page to start with if you're feeling like I am so stuck and can't move along, I would say starting with the contact page is good because there's not much to add there. It's a really simple page, generally speaking. So that'll help get you some momentum without a lot of work. But yeah, that's my 6th tip. Just start, just do it. Just do the first step. And you'll find it so much easier once you get rolling. Okay. So I have 2 more tips left and I really love these last 2. Okay, so number 7, some of you are going to hate hearing me say this, okay? But know that your website does not have to be perfect in order to bring it live. And I think some people mistakenly think of launching their website as if it's this big giant moment where everything's perfect and finished and I will not work on this anymore. It is done. It is perfect. It is launched. And that's kind of how we see that moment. But the reality is you'll likely be updating your site a lot. You'll continue to update it. It's not done. And when you go to launch it and call it done for right now, it's not done forever. Your services are going to change. You're going to think of new ways to word things that you want to update. You'll take new brand photos and change out old ones. It's never done. And so I want you to see your website as fluid and changing as your business grows and change. You're always going to be updating it. Even as a website designer, I update my site all the time randomly. So don't obsess over it being all the way done to get it out to your audience. Another thing that kind of goes along with that, you don't have to use all the pages that come in a template to bring it live. So, my templates come with most of them like a big amount of pages. And some of them you might not need ever, or some of them you might not need to start out. So just don't use that page yet. Don't link to it in your navigation. Delete it if you don't think you need it at all, and launch your site without it. You also don't have to have 1,000 blog posts up to launch your site. That can be something that comes later if blogging's maybe the thing holding you back. The photos don't have to be perfect yet. You can take those later and change them out. So the point here is just done is better than perfect. And again, I know some of you hate that saying and are like, no, perfect is perfect. I personally am not a perfectionist for being a designer. I feel like I can go perfectionist on things like my templates or client sites, but with my own site, I'm perfectly okay with like the done is better than perfect idea. Even just this morning, I had a sweet podcast listener email us telling me one of my links doesn't work on my website. And she was very kindly telling me that, just as hey, just thought you might want to know because I tried to click this and it didn't work. And I'm like, yeah, like my site's not perfect. And that's okay. I haven't even fixed the change yet. I'm going to fix it later today. But it's fine. Like it does not have to be perfect. Your website's going to continue to change over time. And the big key here is like, you can't make that investment work for you to grow your business until it's live. So, you spent money investing in a website template, and you're not going to be able to make back that investment until people can see the website template and see how you customized it and buy from you. So get it live. And the last tip, that one kind of relates to what I was just saying. This is a short one, but put time on your calendar to work on it and give yourself a due date. So we plan what's important to us. When we don't plan stuff, it often doesn't happen. And I love this quote from Brooke Castillo. It makes me think of this, but she says you can live your life in reactive mode or live a deliberate life. Sorry, I totally butchered that. She said you can live your life in reactive mode or live a deliberate life. And that's what I want to encourage you guys here is live a deliberate life where you're planning stuff and putting stuff on your calendar. So if this website customization thing is something you always have on your to-do list, but never put it on your calendar, it's not going to get done. If you're like thinking, oh, someday I'll buy a new website template, but you never go and like purchase it and get started, it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean anything. Like wishful thinking doesn't give us change. So put time on your calendar to work on the thing. And just like finally launching a podcast or launching a new course or finishing up a client project that's taking you forever, you're never going to get it done until you plan time to make it happen. And a big tip I'd give with that as well is to like consider doing something. If you're someone that like really works well with like pressure, maybe ask a friend to hold you accountable. Say like, hey, I'm working on this new website template. I want to have it done by the end of this month. Can you hold me accountable and check in with me that I'm working on that? Maybe ask your spouse or a roommate, like, hey, can you help me make sure that every Wednesday night for 3 hours, I work on this website? Whatever it needs to be. Another thing you could do, and I've seen people do this with success, but announce it to your audience. Make it real. Tell them you're working on a new website. Show behind the scenes. Show kind of like the journey of getting it set up. People love behind the scenes content. So one, that's like great content sharing, but also it can kind of motivate you of like, hey, you told someone this is happening. Now you got to make it happen. That was true for me with my course I'm working on. Once I like said it out loud of like, hey, people, I'm working on this. I'm working on it for you. It really kicked me into gear of like, okay, I said I'm going to do it. Now I got to do it. So that can be true for you too with setting up your website. Okay, that's it, you guys. Those are my 8 tips. And again, I could come up with a lot more than this. I wanted to keep this episode not too long, so I actually cut some tips. But in general, this is a great starting point to save time and get your website launched faster. And again, if you want to hear more about website related stuff, that episode with Kaylin, episode 67, is really good. She talks through her like customer experience and tips for getting your website up quickly. And I plan to in the future have more episodes like that where I'm talking to customers and letting them share tips of like, here's how I did it. Here's results I've seen, all of that kind of stuff. Because I really think that content is super helpful. And if also you're like curious about Wix and Show It and Squarespace and WordPress and all of that, if you scroll back to some episodes in the 30s, I want to say like 31 maybe, Just scroll back a bit to those. There's 3 episodes in a row that are Show It versus Wix, Squarespace, and WordPress. So you can kind of hear like, how is this platform different than what I'm already using? And those are a great guide just to kind of figure out if you want to change platforms, if you want to try my templates, like what they're like. That's really helpful. Okay, so I'm going to recap these though real fast and then we'll close out. So the first tip, don't jump into customizing your template immediately. From what I said about getting messy with your website platform. The second tip, utilize training content, watch tutorials, and really try to learn. The third tip was getting photos and website copy started on before you start the design. And in that tip, if you want to listen back to it, I gave 3 tips for both website copy and photos. Fourth tip, do not reinvent the wheel in the design. Stick closely to the template. Tip number 5, let the website template help you create your brand. The 6th tip was just start. Just get going. Starting the hardest part. Tip number 7 was know that it doesn't have to be perfect in order for you to launch it. Let it be launched imperfectly. And the last tip, put time in your calendar to work on it and give yourself a due date and accountability partner. Tell your audience whatever you need to do to like incentivize and motivate yourself. Okay, guys, I hope you loved this. Let me know what questions you have. Share this with a friend who needs a new website. And yeah, I'll be back next week with another new episode. Have a great day. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode all the way until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on elizabethmccravy.com, you'll find Show It website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. Maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe even it's that thing that you really feel like is just completely holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my M-Shop templates do. So these are pre-made Show It website templates where you can plug and play your content into it with ease and then get started with a website that's designed to actually help you make more money. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, and they're not just pretty, but they are very strategic and with all the strategies I teach on this podcast. And best of all, they're easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at elizabethmccravy.com/shop and come join the M-Shop family of hundreds of happy customers. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off any template as a thank you for being a part of the podcast family. So that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over at elizabethmccravy.com. And if you love this podcast, don't forget that you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts so that you never miss an episode, and leave a rating and review for the show wherever you're listening. Share it with a friend, share it on Instagram or Facebook. That's a great way to support the podcast and get the word out. All right, I'll be back next week with another new episode.